welcome. I'm Bob Proctor, the chairman of the Life Success Group of Companies. And I want to congratulate you for taking part in this program, Thinking into Results. You know, you probably think this just has to do with your work, but it really doesn't. This has to do with your family. It has to do with your social life, your health. It has to do with your life. I began studying this material close to 50 years ago. My life has changed so dramatically. I live in a healthy body, I'm happy, I'm wealthy, I have friends all over the world, and I have business all over the world. And it's all because of this material. You have absolutely no idea where this is going to take you. And when we talk about results, let's understand this. It's what we think that ultimately manifests as results. Now that may seem like a bit of an exaggeration or maybe even a fairy tale to you at this point. But as you start to study it, you're going to realize it's not an exaggeration and it's not a fairy tale. It's real. So take this program seriously. Your leaders are going to give you something that you're going to be grateful for the rest of your life. I am forever grateful every day to have this information because you see, I'm in charge of me. I'm in charge of my world, and you're going to take charge of your world. You'll no longer be a victim of circumstance or a victim of any kind, because you're going to take responsibility for your life and the results you get. We never have to blame. We never have to look at anybody else. And we're in control of how we think, how we feel, how we act, and therefore the results we get. You're going to start loving how you spend your days when you've got thinking into results in your pocket and in your mind. Enjoy it.
Hello, I'm Sandy Gallagher, CEO of Life Success Corporate, and your partner on this journey, Thinking into Results. When I first met Bob Proctor, I was already a successful business attorney, and I thought my life couldn't get much better, but it did. My life has expanded dramatically. I've learned a lot from Bob since we first met. He got me to shift my thinking and see the relationship of my mind to my behavior and my results. Bob Proctor is widely considered one of the greatest teachers in the world on the topic of human potential and growth. He's worked with many of the top companies around the world, from banks to airlines to insurance companies to computer giants like IBM. Working with Bob generates phenomenal results. One of the most valuable concepts that Bob taught me is the importance of setting goals. Not just any goal. Not a goal you know how to achieve. I'm talking about a goal, a dream, a vision, something you think, something you know, in fact, is beyond your experience today. Because the true purpose of a goal is to help you grow in your awareness of yourself and of your team. What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What are your goals? Let's see how you can begin thinking in a new and powerful way and begin discovering your true purpose in life. Are you ready?
The lesson that we're going to do right now could have a greater impact in your life than anything else. It certainly did on mine. You receive a little goal card. This is where you sit down and write out what you want on a card. And then you carry it loose in your purse or your pocket. Now on one side we've got here, change is inevitable, but personal growth is a choice, and it is. Do you know that you could wander up and down the streets of any city, anywhere in the world, and ask one person after another, what is their goal? And they'll look at you, and odds are pretty good they'll say, what do you mean? And if by chance you find someone that has a clearly defined goal, ask if they've got it in writing. And again, odds are pretty good they won't. If you decide what you want, and you write it on the card, and you carry it with you, I guarantee you it must happen. It absolutely must happen in your life. Now, why do we have goals? See, the average individual would say we have a goal to get more. You know, get a better house, get a bigger house, get a boat, get more money. No. That may be a result of the goal. You may, accumulate more in your life and nicer and better things. But the real purpose of a goal is to grow. It causes you to draw something out of yourself that you didn't even know was there. Now, when we set a goal, we're going after something we want. And if you know how to reach it, it's the wrong goal. Now, that probably sounds pretty silly. When you set a goal, you're going after something you want. And if you know how to reach it, it's probably the wrong goal. You're going sideways. I always mention that goals fall into three categories. I refer to it as A, B, and C. A-type goals are doing something you already know how to do. And I use an example in a program that I wrote about a young man that came to me and he asked me if I'd talk to him about his goal. And I said, sure, what's your goal? He said, I want to get a new car. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, what kind of a car do you want? He said, a new Pontiac. I said, well, Pontiac's a nice car. I've had a Pontiac. And I said, what are you driving now? And he said, a Pontiac. Really? I said, how long have you had it? And he said, 4 years. I said, how old's the Pontiac? He said, 4 years old. And I said, then what you're telling me is that you have had a new Pontiac that you bought 4 years ago. You bought it new. He said, that's right. And I said, that's not a good goal. Because you've known for 4 years how to do that. There's going to be no growth attached to it. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't get a new Pontiac, but it would not constitute a goal. A goal is something that you're going to go after you've never done before. Now, when people move away from A-type goals, they generally go to B-type goals. And that's where they sit down and they gather all the information they've got, all the resources they've got, and they say, if all these things happen, then I could accomplish this. And they make a plan. They've got an absolutely beautiful plan. They've got the plan, and if all these things happen, then I can accomplish this. This is what they think they can do. You see, the A-type is what they know they can do. B is what they think they can do. Now, do you know that there's no inspiration in going after something like that? Absolutely none. And if you're going to really accomplish something, you're going to have to be inspired. You're going to have to pull on something that you haven't pulled on before. I mean, it's going to have to come from inside. See, people go after B-type goals, they get going, and they get bored, they're not inspired, and so they quit, they give up. Now, the C-type goal is wants. And what you want, I'm talking about what you really want. Most people say, I don't know what I want. I don't believe that. I think you do know what you want. I think you're rejecting it before you give it any serious thought. To decide what you want, you've got to sit down and totally relax. And then you have to let your imagination wander. When you're going after wants, you're dealing with fantasy. See, the one, you're going after what you know. The other one, you're going after what you think you can do. And the wants is fantasy. Now, we have been conditioned as kids that fantasy is just for little kids. You don't fantasize. You've got to know how things are going to happen. But you see, you and I are the only creature on the planet, so far as we know, that can fantasize. Ed Hillary fantasized that he would stand on top of the world and he climbed Mount Everest. The Wright brothers, a couple of ordinary bicycle mechanics, they fantasized they'd introduce us to a new kingdom, and they did. Now think of this for a moment. What do you fantasize? See, as a little kid you could fantasize, and your mother and dad let you do that because it got you out under their feet. You'd sit down in front of the kitchen cupboards with pots and pans, and God knows only what you did with it. But then you went to school. Bob, pay attention. Your mind's wandering. Will you quit looking out the window and listen to what I'm telling you? And you see, we'd get punished, and pretty soon we stopped fantasizing. We put our imagination away, and we stopped using it. Do you know, Napoleon Hill said the imagination is the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force the world has ever known. Don't you find it strange that we have great, huge companies, big multinationals, with small creative departments? We have people wandering around and say, well, I'm not really creative. Writers are creative, musicians are, but I'm really not creative. Everyone is creative. Creativity comes from the root creator, which is within. Everybody's creative. It's a matter, are you expressing your creativity? Well, don't let people steal your dream. When you sit down and decide what you want, you won't know how you're going to get it. The fun is in finding out how you're going to do it. When I set a goal, if it doesn't sort of scare me, I know I'm on the wrong track. See, if you know how you do it, you're going to go sideways. You've got to build a fantasy. You take the fantasy and you move it from fantasy to a theory. You keep playing with it. And you go from fantasy to a theory, and you take and you build an image, and just follow the pyramid that we've got here for you. And you turn it into a theory. Now that is when we're giving our fantasy some serious consideration. We're starting to use our reasoning mind, and we're starting to give this some serious thought. Now before we can turn the theory into a goal, we have to ask ourselves a couple of things. Am I able to do this? Am I able? Well, if we believe everything we've been taught by both science and theology, the only two sources of reference we have to go to, we have deep reservoirs of talent. We have infinite potential. Absolutely, I'm able. I don't know how, but I'm able. The second question we have to ask, am I willing? Am I willing to pay the price? Am I willing to do what I have to do to get to where I'm going? See, Ed Hillary had to go to Nepal in 1951, in 1952, and 1953. No one had ever been to the top of Mount Everest. Everyone in the world told him it couldn't be done. Anybody that tried died. But he kept going back. He was willing to do whatever was required, and he got to the top of that mountain. Have you any idea how those two young bicycle mechanics, the Wright brothers, were ridiculed? Told to quit wasting time? Have you any idea how many times people laughed at Edison when he said what he was going to do? He was going to make this incandescent light. Do you know he failed about 10,000 times? He was willing to do that. See, failing at something doesn't make you a failure. You're only a failure when you stop. You could ask, am I able to do this? Yeah, I'm able. Am I willing? Yeah, I'm willing. I am willing to pay the price. At that second, your theory turns into a goal. Now, as you get emotionally involved in the goal, you're going to find that your emotional involvement is going to change your behavior. Yet you're going to find as your behavior changes, the results start to change. And your theory turns into a fact. And once you reach the goal, it turned into a fact. That puts you in a position to build bigger and better fantasies. Now, let's back up a bit. How do you decide what you want? See, that's a pretty big idea. You've got to sit down as an individual and start writing all your wants down. Make it a shopping list. See, I think there's two goals people should have. They should have a personal goal, and then they should have a corporate goal. You might want to sit down with your peers in your department and say, what could we accomplish in this department? It could be the sales department. It might be, as a group, collectively, take the sales to a point that would shock the executives in the company. It could be in the machine shop. Let's make this place the most effective machine shop in the world. It could be in the accounting department. Let's make sure everything's right on tap. They're goals. And as we work towards them, we unify our energies. We work together, but we're working towards a point. See, when people are working towards something, they're alive. If they're just working, they don't have any fun. So we've got to sit down and we've got to decide, what do I really want? And start to make a list. You're capable of doing anything. And what we're really doing is raising our level of conscious awareness. And you're going to find when you decide on the thing on the list that you want more than anything, that becomes the star you're shooting at. That's what's written on the card. That becomes the goal. It might be an income, it might be a position, it might be a new home, it might be a trip. That becomes the goal. Yeah, that's what you work towards. And you're forever trying to become more effective so you can raise your consciousness and you become aware of how to do it. It's the same in a department. We have a masterminding session, a brainstorming session. How can we make this department more effective than it is? Now, you're going to find possibly someone say, well, I'm not doing that. Well, then that's okay. They're not part of the group. Don't let another person dictate how you're going to live. Don't let conditions or circumstance dictate. It has nothing to do with what's going on outside of you. It's what's going on inside. George Bernard Shaw said that people are always blaming circumstance for where they are. He said, I don't believe in circumstance. The people that get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they make them. So you absolutely refuse to let anything that's going on outside stop you. Do you know, there's a cute story about the Maharishi and yoga when he was taking his transcendental meditation to the world. or planning to, someone asked him, well, where's all the money going to come from? He said, wherever it is right now. See, nothing's created or destroyed. If nothing's created or destroyed, everything's already here, if not in one state or another. The way to fly airplanes has always been here. Internet, it's always been here. We just weren't aware of how to do it. And as we raise our conscious awareness, we've got it. Nothing is created or destroyed. All science and all theology have taught us that for years. Now, when we really start to understand that, we live in a notion of motion. We're living in a constant evolution of change. But remember when I said personal growth is a choice. You've got to have a goal. You've got to wake up in the morning and get excited. I'm working towards my goal. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm creating this program with you. I'm working towards a goal. I have a business partner, Sandy Gallagher. She wants to build this worldwide, the corporate division. And so that's what we're doing. That's what we're working towards. That's why we're spending time here right now, building this program. So help you. See, the only way to reach the goal is to provide greater service. And as you provide greater service, you're going to grow. You're going to move ahead. Things inside of you are going to start to happen. An individual that doesn't have a goal is lost. They don't know where they're going. Can you imagine going on a trip and you don't know where you're going? Somebody say, well, where are you going to go? I don't know, west. Where? I mean, you could be going around the world and just going around the world and around the world. Well, where are you going? I'm going west. Well, when you get there, you still can go west. Imagine driving out of your driveway. You've got no destination. Which way would you turn? You see, we're goal-seeking organisms, every one of us. Have you ever watched a little baby? The baby's goal is to walk. It falls, it bangs its head, it cries, it bleeds, but it doesn't stay down. It gets up and it gets going. And pretty soon, it's, look, Ma, I'm walking. Then they get on a bike. And the trick is to balance it, learn how to ride. Pretty soon it's, look, Ma, no hands. But you know what your goal is? Your goal, your real purpose in life is to grow. You want to sit down and ask yourself, what do you really love to do? That's what you're going to get good at. That's what your purpose is going to be all about. That's what your goal is all about. Move toward what you want. Have a personal goal, have a corporate goal. Now, your personal goal and your corporate goal in your department should be consistent with the corporate goal that the executive team set. So you want to make sure, as you go towards the big one, that all your little ones will fall into place. And I guarantee you, you'll set something on fire inside of you that there's nothing like it. Goal achievers are productive individuals. They're happy, they're productive, they're prosperous. They're the ones that make the world change. Don't listen to people that tell you why something can't be done. Don't listen to people that tell you the economy is controlling them. You control the economy. You're God's highest form of creation. Steve Bowe, who was a vice president with the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, said one time something that I have never forgot. He said, God's gift to us is more talent and ability than we'll ever hope to use in our lifetime. Our gift to God is to develop as much of that talent and ability as we can in this lifetime. I like that. You might want to take and memorize that. It's done me a lot of good. Now I've shared it with you. Set your goal. Get it on your card. Bury it in your mind. Tell yourself, I'm able and I'm willing, and then go and do it. This is Bob Proctor. Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate you on taking this first step towards thinking into results. Now that you know a lot more about setting goals, the right kind of goals, what do you do next? You take action, because that's where the learning really begins. Without action, goals are just fantasies. So sit down with your coworkers, take some time and ask them, if we had all the resources we needed and there were no limitations or restrictions, what would we want to accomplish together as a department? It's really a great opportunity to collaborate and be creative, because everyone wins by coming together for a common goal, and everyone soars when those common goals are big, worthy goals. So good luck, and I'll see you at the next lesson. Hello, this is Sandy Gallagher welcoming you back into Thinking into Results. So now that you've spent time creating your worthy goals and you have an idea of what you want, how do you get there? What's the next step? I've discovered that often we go through life without conscious awareness. We're literally programmed to act, think, and behave in a certain way. And those habits become a part of our essence as human beings from a very early age. And that's why most people aren't doing what they really want to be doing. So if you want to change your results, you need to change your mind and think in a different way. Bob Proctor has spent over 50 years studying human behavior and potential. And through his experience and his knowledge, he'll guide you to a new way of thinking, and he'll help you close the gap between what you know and what you do. And you will be amazed at how different your world looks when you start to change your paradigms. You're on your way to understanding you a lot better, and when you open the door to new paradigms, results will begin to show up. The results that you want.
Hello there, we're back again. And the idea that I'm going to share with you could be, without question, one of the most profitable ideas that you ever focus your attention on. I'm sure you do focus your attention on this at times, but it may be more like a passing thought, like a thief in the night. It just keeps on going. And what we want to do is bring our conscious attention to bear on this, focus on it for a few minutes. It's about the knowing-doing gap. There's an enormous difference between what most people know and what they do. Now, when I say most people, I could say almost all people. Because we have been conditioned, we've been raised, it's passed along genetically, it's certainly a part of our early conditioning in our little life. Our whole educational system is based on getting people to know things. We're given books. We study the books. The professor covers what's in the book. And then we're asked questions about what's in the book, and if we remember the answer to the questions, we're going to get a passing grade. And if we do that often enough, we could end up with a degree. And we could be wandering around an encyclopedia of knowledge and yet not be a very effective human being. Some of the most brilliant people in the world never make things happen. And then for some strange reason, you'll find another individual who may be functionally illiterate. They don't know how to read or write, and yet they're multimillionaires. They build multinational organizations. Now, why is that and how does it happen? Well, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the two parts of our mind. The one part that gathers information, and that's the part that school focuses on from a very early age. And people gather information, but they don't necessarily do what they know how to do. And we find as we get older, this gap seems to get wider because we know more and we seem to do less. Now, do you know, that causes enormous amounts of frustration in a person's life. That frustration then is expressed in all kinds of behavioral patterns that is not conducive to profit in an organization or good results in a person's life. And so this is a lesson that everyone, regardless of what they're doing, should pay quite a bit of attention to. To start off, let's go back to the time when we're just little boys or little girls. I remember when I was a little kid, my mother would say, "Bob, why did you do that?" I'd say, "I don't know." See, I was doing things I didn't want to do. It was giving me results I didn't want to get, and yet I was doing them anyway. And then when I was faced with the problem, "Why did you do that?" I'd say, "I don't know." And my mother would say, "You know better?" "I know." "Why'd you do it?" "I don't know." And of course this progressed on through school. All my school teachers, from time to time they'd say, "Bob, why did you do that?" And I didn't know. They'd say, "Well, you know better." "I know." "Why'd you do it?" "I don't know." Now I went into the Canadian Navy as a fairly young man, and this caused me some trouble. Commanding officers would say, "Proctor," and I'd, "Yes, sir." "Why'd you do that?" I don't know." They say, "What do you mean you don't know? You know better." "I know." "Well, why'd you do it?" "I don't know." well, I'm going to teach you a lesson, and I'd be punished. They may fine me or have me do some kind of punishment, and I would grade out and do it again. They'd say, Proctor, how many times do you have to be told not to do this? I don't know, sir. What do you mean you don't know? You know better. I know. Well, this went on to different jobs when I got out of the Navy and I got married. My wife said, why'd you do that? And I said, stop it right there. See, I was doing things I did not want to do. It was giving me results I did not want to get, and I was doing them anyway. Stop and think of the number of people that go on a diet. And they see that piece of cake. And they know they shouldn't eat it. And they don't want the results it's going to give them. But they eat the cake, and somebody say, I thought you were on a diet. I am. Well, why'd you do that? I don't know. Now think about this. Do you know that corporations in America spend over $60 billion in a year helping people know more? That's really what training is. We're training them to know. It's not, most of it's not experiential training. It's gathering information. Do you see? It's part of our conditioning. All the way through school, gather information, sit them in a classroom, give them more information. That's what we're doing right here. But this is information that is going to solve a problem for you that most people carry to their grave. You see, there are two parts to our mind. Now, I know psychologists, psychiatrists will say there's many parts to our mind, and that's probably very true. But there's two parts we want to focus on. There's the conscious mind. That's referred to as the educated mind. The educated mind, the conscious mind, gathers information. We read the book, we remember what's in the book, we answer questions, and we pass the exam. See, we read it, remember it, and repeat it. But that doesn't mean that we're going to do it. The part of our mind that gathers information is the conscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is the part of the mind that causes this thing that we live in, what we call our body, to do what it does. And it's our behavior that's going to determine our results. So we figure that out and we try to get people to change their behavior. If you don't go to the primary cause of results, there's not going to be any permanent change. When you do go to the primary cause of results, then there's permanent change. So you have to ask yourself, why do they behave as they do? And that answer rests in the person's subconscious mind. It's in what we call the paradigm. Now, the paradigm is that section in our subconscious mind that gathers habits. A habit is nothing but an idea fixed in a person's subconscious mind that causes them to do something without any conscious thought. We all have an enormous number of habits. When we get up in the morning, there's sort of a routine that we move into. And we just automatically start doing things. Stop and think of people in your business. Some of them come in late. They're always late. You chastise them, you may have a talk to them about it, and they're probably on time for a couple of days, but the next thing you know, they're late. And they've always got an excuse, and it's a good excuse, but it's never the reason why they're late. They are programmed to run late. That's what they're programmed to do. Now, there's somebody else that's always early. That's part of their paradigm. They're always there early. They're sitting ready, to get the meeting underway. They're there early. You ever looked at that? Let's stop and think of salespeople. There's millions of dollars spent in sales training, but there's not a lot of great salespeople. Anybody can be, but not everybody is. So we train the people and we show them how to do things, and then they don't do it. See, people know how to make presentations, they know how to overcome objections, they know how to close the sale, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it. This goes on and on and on. You go into a factory or you go into an office, and you're going to find people that are performing way below the level that they should perform at. You see, knowing is not enough. Results are the name of the game. By their fruit you'll know them was good advice. The results always tell an interesting story. They tell where the person is programmed. Now, when a person comes to work with me, I start asking a series of questions. And what I want to find out is, how are you programmed? One of the first things I'll ask people is, what's the most you've ever earned? That gives me an idea of where their mind is programmed with respect to money. I want to try and get some kind of a handle on their history. And there's a pattern to it, and that's all caused by the paradigm. Well, you see, if we start to understand the paradigm, we start to understand the power of habit, when we start to understand how this subconscious mind is literally programmed, that's when we can start to change it. Now, that is a baby that's arriving on the scene, a brand new baby. Now, whatever's going on around that baby goes right into that baby's subconscious mind. All the ideas, all the thoughts that are going on around the child go right into that baby's subconscious mind. Now, when the baby arrived, they were already programmed. That's genetic conditioning. Stop and think of this for a moment. Most of the food you eat, you did not decide you liked. It was given to you before you had any conscious ability to make a decision, some kind of a critical decision, do you like this or not? You see, we are given food that our parents like. That's what we get. Why do they like it? Well, they were given food their parents like. You'd have to go a long way back in the family tree to find out who made the decision for you to do many of the things you're doing. And you say, oh, I don't believe that. Well, if you study it for just a very short period of time, you're not only going to believe it, it's going to be very obvious to you. Well, you see, these habits are passed along from one generation to the next. So when we arrive on the scene, when we make our great debut on planet Earth, we're already programmed. We're programmed. That's why we look so much like our relatives. Our body is an instrument of the mind. So here we are now, we arrive on the scene, and the subconscious mind is wide open. Whatever's going on around that baby goes right into that baby's subconscious mind. And it's repetition that fixes the idea in the subconscious mind. Carl Menninger from the Menninger Foundation down in Topeka said something one time that is very, very important and very true. He said environment is more important than heredity. In other words, the people we're surrounded by have more to do with who we are than what's built into the genes at birth. Now, the baby doesn't have any choice about the environment. They did not choose where they were going to be born. They're just here. And they're being programmed. And that programming goes on for the first 2 or 3 years until the baby starts to consciously think for themselves. But at that time, the programming is pretty well set. And so as energy flows to and through us, the thinking is already there. You see, the person's programmed to think in a certain way. Now, the paradigm is what causes us to behave as we do. Now, we start then, at an early age, gathering information. We gather more information. And that information is all loaded up in the conscious mind. But rarely does a person do anywhere near what they know how to do. You see, your conscious mind makes decisions. We make decisions based on all kinds of different factors. But, you know, the decisions we make are generally not carried out. We sit in meetings and we decide we're going to do things. We spend all kinds of time strategizing. But frequently the strategy is not executed. Why is that? It's because of the paradigms. Now, if we sat down and we're very open and honest about our paradigms and take a look at our behavioral patterns, we'll say, well, I know I'm not going to do that because I'm not programmed to do it. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to change the programming. Now, that's what this program is all about. That's what Life Success is all about. That's what Life Success Corporate's about. That's what thinking into results is about. See, thinking by itself will not change results. You've got to internalize the thinking, and as you internalize the thinking, and it's done through repetition, it's done through a process, the paradigm is changed, the behavior changed, and the results changed. That's what got me into this industry. Many, many years ago, I went from earning $4,000 a year to over $1 million. And it was almost like that. It was such a shocking change in results, I had to know why. Most people would have been satisfied with the results. I wasn't. I was happy about the results, but I had to know why I changed as I did. See, I had no formal education to speak of. I had a couple of months high school. I had absolutely no business experience. I had a fairly bad attitude when I first got into this, and yet my whole world changed. Built a company that operates all over the world. How does that happen? Well, you see, I learned that most of the things we're taught are not true. I was raised to believe that if you don't have a good formal education, you cannot win. That's not true. I don't have a good formal education, but I've won. Now think about this for a moment. If you don't have business experience, you can't win. Well, that's not true. I didn't have any business experience, and I built a company in Canada, the US, and in England. How did that happen? Well, you see, it's because these things happened that I had to start to study this. I want to know what happened to me. Well, you see, I had changed this paradigm. I didn't know what I had done. I was what you call an unconscious confident. Do you know that most people that are real high performers in an organization, the organization doesn't know what they're doing? What do they do that is so different? How come these hard chargers are doing such a good job? Some of the largest companies in the world that I've worked for have spent an absolute fortune shadowing their top performers, trying to figure out what are they doing so different. They operate with a different paradigm. Most people don't know. I had a gentleman come up to me one time in the Waldorf Astoria, a great big guy, and he said, Bob, he said, I've really got to thank you. It was a 3-day seminar. He said, this is the first time I've understood what I did. And I said, well, what did you do? He said, I won the gold medal in the decathlon in the Olympics in Melbourne, Australia in 1957. His name was Milt Campbell. Milt and I became very good friends. But he said, I never understood what I had actually done. We take a look at people that are performing, very, very high performers, and we're thinking, how are they doing it? Some of them aren't that bright. Some of them haven't gathered that much knowledge. You see, we say bright because of the knowledge they've gathered, but gathering the knowledge isn't going to give them the results. Now, I'm not saying you don't need knowledge, you do. And because I didn't go to school, I'm not anti-education. I think education is almost sacred. All my kids went to school. See, I just changed question in our home. I didn't ask if they were going to go. I asked them where they were going to go. So what we have to do, we have to ask ourselves, why do people behave as they do, and why don't they behave the way they want? I want you to stop and think of the knowledge that some of the people in your organization have, and then take a look at their performance and say, now, how can we close this knowing-doing gap? Because that's what this is all about. When you watch a person move, study them, watch the way they move, you're going to find that their behavior is habitual. It is habitual. And start to understand that the knowledge they're holding or gathered, it's not controlling what they're doing. Their paradigm's controlling what they're doing. Listen to the conversations that are going on. See, to call a person into your office and say, Harry or Betty, your performance just isn't going to cut it. And they'll say, well, tell me what I have to do and I'll change it. See, I know this because I've been called into the office. And I promised, you give me one more chance and I'll change. And I meant it. But I didn't change. You see, the person I was working for didn't understand it. It was my paradigm that was causing me to perform the way I was. And I didn't understand it either. So here we had two ignorant people trying to change the performance of an individual, and it wasn't going to happen. And it didn't happen. And I lost a lot of jobs because I was not doing what I was asked to do, what I said I would do. And it was my paradigm was my problem. And you know, paradigm is the problem in everything we do. The knowing-doing gap is miles apart. There are millions, billions, I've already mentioned 60 billion, just in North America, on training, on helping people know more, but not on doing. We've got to begin to focus on the paradigm. We've got to help people understand why they're doing what they're doing and how to change what they're doing. And when we do that, everything starts to change. So you see, as we get into understanding goals, as we get into understanding self-image, as we get into understanding cybernetics, because the mind is something like a thermostat. It's set. It controls the temperature of our life. That's the paradigm again. The way it's set dictates the results we're going to get. And if we want to change the results, we've got to change the setting. How do we do that? We take some of the ideas that are controlling the behavior out of the paradigm and we replace them with other ideas. Now the trick is, how do you do that? And that is what the self-image lesson is all about. How does a person change the image they have of themselves? Because that is part of the paradigm. That's what's controlling the behavior. And as we get into that, the whole world starts to change. You're going to love, absolutely love, every module in this program. Thinking into results is without question the most powerful corporate transformational program you will find anywhere in the world. I've often mentioned I've got license to brag about all these ideas because none of them are mine. I have just been a very curious guy, a guy that saw dramatic change in his own life, and I just had to know why. And so for the past half century almost now, I've been gathering the information, and I'm really enthused about sharing it with you. It's Bob Proctor. Thank you.
I trust you're starting to see the power of your mind and the effect that your thoughts have on your results. And not just the thoughts in your conscious mind, but more importantly, the thoughts deep in your subconscious mind. We're starting to learn now about the role of paradigms in both our personal and our professional life. And understanding this is critical to understanding why we all get so frustrated at times. It's because of this gap between what we know and what we do. And that gap is caused by unseen thoughts in your subconscious mind. So if you're not getting the results that you want, it's because your paradigms are controlling your behavior. Change the paradigm, change the results. What is the gap between what you know you should do in a situation and what you're doing? What is your knowing doing gap? Take time with the exercises in your participants guide because they will open your eyes to why you do what you do and help you change your behavior for the positive results you're looking for. Now it's going to take some effort and a bit of vulnerability too, but go ahead, give it a try. I promise you the reward will be big. Hello, this is Sandy Gallagher welcoming you back to another powerful lesson of thinking into results. By now, you should be deep into thinking about your mind and how it got you to where you are today. In this lesson, Bob is going to show you how to turn the habits that are holding you back into the thoughts that will change your behavior and create new paradigms, one habit at a time. How do you know that your paradigms are not the right ones? You just look at your results that you're getting. Are they positive? Are they really what you want? If not, then open your mind and look at this powerful way of creating more favorable results. When I started this program, I remember thinking that I had learned how to think in law school, but I certainly didn't learn how to think this way. And I sure wish that I had a long time ago. You're very lucky because thinking into results will get you on the right path quickly. You're on your way to getting what you want sooner rather than later.
Well, here we are back again. Are you ready to make a big change in your life? Because if you are, this is the lesson that's going to do it. As you really understand what we're going into here, you're going to realize that you're going to get the keys to the kingdom. This is the lesson that'll show you how to step out and do the thing you've always wanted to do. Now, we've had a lot of talk about paradigms. Paradigms literally control everything in our life. Paradigms dictate our logic. You see, when the Wright brothers introduced us to a new kingdom, they were the only one thought that was a logical thing to do. Everybody else said it's illogical, you just can't do it. At one time it was believed that the world was flat. That was our logic. And of course there's a good argument as to why that's logical. I mean, how would the people live on the side of the world or on the bottom? They'd fall off, wouldn't they? Do you see how logic keeps us wired where we are? Well, do you know, as the paradigms change, your logic will change. See, it's totally illogical for people to believe that we could improve by 200 or 500%. 5 or 10% is logical. 200, 500, illogical. Your paradigm controls your logic. So what we're going to do to change the paradigm is illogical. It doesn't make any sense. Now, you see, I did this many years ago. I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't even understand why I kept doing it. It doesn't make any sense to read a book through the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the 24th time, the 124th time. I mean, we've been programmed. You read a book and you put it down. You've read the book. Tell me what's in the book. We can give you certainly an outline of what it's about. But we wouldn't think going back and read it over and over and over again. Let me tell you something. I've been reading this particular copy of this book every day since 1963. Now, the book has fallen apart. Somebody will say, is that the Bible? Well, it's my Bible, I guess. It's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He spent his whole life putting this together, studying 500 of the world's most effective individuals. And my reasoning went like this after I was reading it for a while. If he spent his whole life writing it, I think I'll spend my whole life reading it. It's helped me earn millions of dollars. It's made me a very happy human being. I've got all kinds of energy. I have friends all over the world. I think I'll keep reading it. Now, it doesn't make any sense. People say, why do you read the same thing over and over again? Well, for a long time I didn't know what the answer was. I was listening to a recording, a talk record. You see, Earl Knight...